Paltrocast.
Getting this started here, how is your day going aside from having to deal with, the fake news media like myself?
Oh, come on. It's good, man. I dragging. I had to wake up real early and take the kids to school this morning. So, but I'm good, man. I work I run a recording studio here in Nashville, on Music Row, and so it's not a bad gig to have. So I'm doing pretty good.
You're the most professional band in terms of your professions outside of the band, yet
Yeah.
the most modest of all the professional bands. Can we say that?
Sure. It's weird because we play aggressive music, but you know how Kiss always said they're the loudest band in the world? We're the politest band in the world.
Well, no. Kiss is the hottest band in the land.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Who was the loudest? I can't remember.
A few bands have done the loudest.
Or maybe that was Spinal Tap. I think it was Spinal
goes
Tap.
to 11. I appreciate the references that have come in, and we're going to go back to that. But let's first talk about the fact that your band has the first new music in a few years. How long did you have to keep that under wraps for?
What really caused that span of time was COVID.
Sure.
We were in support of our last record, which was called The Record, and a lot of great momentum, a nice placement on the charts, and some tours that were happening, and then grinding halt for 2 years, and then so we got back together and we started just touring again, and then started looking towards the new music. So we've probably been working on this new record for about 6 to 7 months, really working on it. We got the single done, but it's also, we kind of have always done things on our own terms, as far as the length of time in between albums, and so we haven't kept anything under wraps, but we've just been working on it consistently to make sure it's a great record.
Well, a common thing that I hear is somebody tapes interviews 5-6 days a week. People go, "Oh yeah, the album was made during COVID. We didn't see anyone craving new music, so we sat on it for 2 years." Not the case.
No, not at all. We don't live in the same cities anymore.
Right.
We started in Boston, where we were all together and did the DIY, like, hardcore touring for years. But now we all live in separate cities, except for 2 of our guys still live in Boston. So getting together during COVID was not an option for all of us. We just wanted to keep it. We weren't going to be able to tour anyway. So what's the point in putting out a new record if you can't support it?
Well said. And these upcoming dates, you're just playing with a bunch of bands who sold many millions of records, like Buckcherry and Collective Soul and Candlebox. But the reason I mention that is it's very interesting to see a band that can play with those bands that I just named, yet also play with Non-Point and Seven Dust and harder bands. Now, when we're playing with an alternative 90s band like Collective Soul, do you have a very different set list than you do with a Seven Dust or a Non-Point?
Absolutely. When we first formed, we were just full of piss and wind, and we wanted to be,
Well, you're from Boston, of course.
Yeah, but we wanted to be the most outlandish, craziest thing anybody had ever heard or seen. So, like, we loved bands like System of a Down and stuff like that. And so, to be honest, we have got a 20-year catalog. We could open for Collective Soul, or we could open for Slipknot, and we kind of play according to that. We're not going in and singing a bunch of really heavy, metal stuff if we're opening for Collective Soul. We're still going out there and whipping ass, but it's a different thing for sure.
If you're opening for Slipknot, is Live That Life the opening song to show that you could do the groove metal thing? But if you're Collective Soul, you do that at the end because that's the hit?
Actually, Live That Lie always comes second.
Oh, always second.
Always second. For the time being, for the past couple of years, we've got a really nice transition from a song off the record called The Gun into Live That Lie. So Live That Lie. Our actually biggest charter was Blood on My Hands. So that usually closed the show until this latest single, and now we're closing the show with that one.
Not a bad problem to have multiple hits that
we have
don't
massive
exactly sound the same.
conversations. Yeah, you're talking about like a 70 song, sort of catalog to pull from. And obviously there are favorites, but sometimes we get into a room and we'll jam for like 3 or 4 hours and just break out a lot of the old American classics, as we call them.
Well, Live That Live's what hooked me onto your band. It randomly came up on a Spotify thing because I went, this is like Queens of the Stone Age meets like Southern groove metal. And I heard that I went, these guys clearly have personality. Now, in your case, did you start off as a metal guy?
Man, my first love is heavy music. I to be honest, I don't listen to it a whole lot. But I listen to stuff that, kind of inspires me in a different direction. And I think it bleeds over into how we approach things. With Live That Lie and with the Delta record, we had just made a record. Well, a couple of years before, we had made a record called American Dream Machine, which to me is our heaviest, most proggy type thing. And
the word prog makes me laugh because sometimes it's sarcastic and sometimes it's not.
Right. If you're talking about King's X, it's awesome.
That's the prog I can do. Yes, now the members of Yes, when you interview them, couldn't be sweeter gentlemen. But I like the hits and the ballads. I like the songs on they're 5 minutes long. But King's X, I could take a 5 to 8 minute song from.
Yeah, occasionally. I like to keep it at 4. But when we made Delta, man, we just always wanted to make the records we wanted to make.
Yeah.
And you could listen to Delta and be like, well, they're not as heavy as they used to be. But to me, that's not even close to the point. You know what I mean? I think Rival Sons is like a super heavy band, but in that genre, you wouldn't call them heavy. You would call Pantera heavy. You know what I mean? But like their songs are so good. Their grooves are so good. That's heavy business. You know what I mean? Like there's some rock happening there. So we kind of did that with Delta, and we actually had Reese Winans from Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble and Joe Bonamassa.
I saw him 2 weeks ago in Joe Bonamassa's band. And you go, he's in that band? I didn't know that.
He did organs on 4 tracks on that record. And then so it was just we wanted to make that record. We wanted to make like a heavy riffy blues sort of inspired things. And I mean there's some like near acoustic stuff on that record too. And then, after that we went towards the record, the album, the record, and and just it kept expanding. Like who wants to eat the same meal every day? You know what I mean? I mean, no offense to bands that continuously make like heavy records, kudos, like their wallets are fatter than mine. But as far as we're concerned with our band is like, we always just wanted to play what turned us on. And, we every show we play, obviously we adore giving and receiving love from fans. But my favorite thing when we're playing live is just to turn around and see my bros. You know what I mean? Because after all these years, same guys, no subs, like best of best friends. You know what I mean?
Awesome to hear.
And it's great. It's unbelievable to have that, and rare, I think.
The time or opportunity that I had to interview Josh 5 or 6 years ago, full disclosure, I didn't know he was in this band. I just knew the music industry thing. Does that happen a lot where people see you out and they're like, wait, you're Rubikon?
Sometimes, we're not incredibly well known.
I disagree about that because your social media numbers beat a lot of people's social media numbers.
But we maybe 9-10 months ago we did a run in Canada with Buckcherry, and we'd never been to Canada before, and we did a big show, and like there were some people that came out, and they came to see us, and I was like, what the heck? Like I couldn't believe it, like we played for years and years and years, but to have that like in a different country altogether is really cool. And humbling, really, honestly. It kind of makes it all worth it.
Now, this is a compliment. This isn't going into fake news territory. That's a promise. But I had the pleasure of interviewing Josh a couple of months ago about his new record. And he is one of the smartest people that nobody knows is a smart person. He is the exact opposite of the music that he's singing in Buckcherry.
Oh, yeah.
Now, when did you kind of realize that with the Buckcherry guys? The whole sex, drugs, rock and roll thing? Well, most of them are sober and have.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. First of all, I can't say enough good things about those guys. Yeah. Their last 2 records they've done here at my studio.
Really? Oh, yeah. That would make sense because Marty Fredrickson is in the area.
Marty's the man.
Nice.
So, we went out on tour with them and it was, just a first tour. We're polite, they're polite, that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, like, I figure out Josh Todd he's a fisherman.
Go down the list. He plays tennis. Phlebotomist. Is that how you say that?
What?
He can take your blood out. That was one of the things he learned during COVID.
I don't know about that.
The next time you see Josh, ask him who the best person in Buckcherry taking blood is.
Okay.
He's actually licensed in that.
Oh, no kidding. But I found out he was a fisherman. And so like they came in to do the next record cycle and they were here for like 3 weeks and I have a boat. So I was like, let's go fishing. So we went fishing like multiple times. He would like cut in the morning and we would go fish for like 4 hours until dark and then rinse, repeat like the next day. To this day, I mean, I would just play with them 2 weeks ago, but he sends me fish pictures all the time because he carries a rod on tour and he'll seek out like these random bodies of water and just run out there and try and catch a fish. Like, but couldn't be a sweeter guy, couldn't be a sweeter band. And but you're right, like the mythos of the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, is I mean, sure, it's around, but those guys are all been sober for such a long time, totally pros, you know what I mean? And tours like that. Tours, people think of rock tours as just a nonstop party.
Summer camp.
And some nights it is like that, but it's like, you have to be really careful, especially as a singer, to be able to make sure that you can play the next night. You know what I mean? And
you actually fed into something that I'm super curious about, and sorry to interrupt you there, which is your vocals are still great all these years later, still strong. How do you make that happen? Are you a big vocal wind down person after you leave the stage, or is it genetics and you sleep a lot?
There may be a little genetic disposition. Both my parents were musicians, and I probably sang in front of people for the first time when I was 3 or 4. But I didn't really enjoy it till I was about 18. But when I went to school, I started taking voice lessons and it was all opera based. So incredible, just exercises and technique. And my voice gets hoarse and I do all that just like any other human. But like, it's a lot of technique. And to do things the correct way, you can spare really blowing yourself out. And then there's, extensive warm-ups before shows, drinking the Pedialyte, getting hydrated, and then afterwards, like we'll just be driving back to the hotel or something. I'm just in the back, just kind of humming, and so that just sort of winds things down. And then you got to get sleep. If you're not, you're screwed if you don't get sleep. But yeah. Well,
that's really great to hear that there's a method to the madness.
Sure, absolutely.
One other thing that I'm curious about before I let you go is you're dialing in from Nashville. You've got that great studio there where a lot of great records are made. And as an outsider, I spent 5 days of my life in Nashville. That's all I've spent. I'm a New York, LA person, for better and for worse. But with Nashville, it seems like all the music industry is there. It used to be known as Music City, USA, just because of country.
Sure.
But the Slash records are made there. Is that at your studio too, there with Elvis?
It's my studio is we primarily deal in rock. We're making a soul record this week, which is really cool, like traditional sort of Marvin Gaye, Al Green sort of soul record. outstanding musicians. But you know, there is a lot of Nashville is not, it's the music, to me, it's the new LA. It's the music capital of the world right now.
Totally. So where I was going with that is all the 80s bands that you love, every member of those bands either moved to Vegas or Nashville.
Yeah.
All the hard rock guys seem to be there. Kip Winger, who I was speaking with a couple days ago, he's around town. You see him a lot there too.
Yeah.
So when did you kind of realize as a rock guy, you could be in Nashville for the rest of your life, as opposed to having to go to New York or LA?
It's cheaper.
So money aside, did it just come to you like you were on tour and went, oh, this is great? Or did one gig come to you and you stayed? Or what led you to Nashville?
We did a record. We did the Delta record here, and I wasn't living here at the time, and just love the city. We actually live about 25 minutes outside of the city, so we have a very you know, peaceful surrounding, and then, you know, commute in on the daily. But yeah, I mean, I love Nashville. There's, you know, it's a what do you want kind of city. You know, you want to see a show, great. You want to eat killer food, great. You know, do you want to go get hammered and puke on the sidewalk? It's a place for you. You know.
That makes sense. And did you initially know when you were making the record there that it was a rock city, or were you still under the understanding that it was a country city?
Well, you know, that when we made that record, I think it was just in the beginning of a movement phase. And even in the past like 3 years of living here in Nashville, it's just kind of exploded. And everybody's here, all the rock labels, every music company has some sort of office here because it's cheaper to operate. You know, it's cheaper for people to move here and live, you know. But yeah, man, I love it. I couldn't be happier with where we are.
Well, I will tag Nashville tourism in the social media posts for this article because I brought it there. But the bottom line is congrats on the new record.
Thanks,
looking
man.
forward to the next gig that you got in New York. That wasn't on the list. Right now I'm seeing Utica. That's not really it. That's not really.
Yeah, that was a fun show. We've got some stuff in the works. We're doing a UK tour in January. It's our first time to go across the sea, and I can't tell you what a dream come true that is. But we've got some irons in the fire. It's nothing I can announce right now. But I'm sure we'll be up in your area sometime soon.
Fingers crossed. Kudos to Round Hill Records and Josh for
absolutely
making that one happen, and really looking forward to whatever's coming next from in the near future. Thank you for your time,
Darren. Thanks so much, pal. Take care.
Paltrocast.